Hello there. It's been more than 3 months now since I last posted a video, and what a 3 months it's been. 2020 is shaping up as one of the most eventful years of our lives, and for me it took a particularly serious turn on the 4th of May. I've been very sick since then. I had something called an aortic dissection, which is an especially deadly medical condition that sort of hit me on the 4th of May, and well, I'm still recovering now, but I am feeling much better, and yeah, happy to say, and happy to be able to produce another video. And today I wanted to talk about one really important thing that has come out of this experience, and that is the incredible sense of gratitude I have. Gratitude that I'm able to sit here now, having experienced what I experienced. But before I talk about that, I would like to show you some video that I shot on the 4th of May, which was the day that I became very sick. And I went for my normal daily swim. I was a lot healthier then than I am now. I was also about 12 kilos heavier. And I went for my daily swim, and I shot a little video. I mean, kind of a incredible coincidence. I shot a little video where I was talking about gratitude then as well. And it must have been about 10 hours after I shot this video. I was on my deathbed at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, just up the road from where I am now in Sydney. So let me show you a little bit of this video that I shot on my daily swim at Neilson Park in Sydney Harbour, and then we'll talk more about the whole sort of medical adventure I've had since then. This delightful little spot in Sydney Harbour has been my go-to place during the coronavirus lockdown. Feel so fortunate, so privileged when you look at what's happening around the world. First of all, to be in a country that's been fortunate enough to manage and contain this terrible illness, and to also be in a place where you can still have this kind of public space available during the crisis. It's yeah, feeling very privileged. But yeah, this is a particularly beautiful place. It's a bit cold now. The weather's really cooled down in Sydney, but lovely here anyway. Water temperature's not too bad. So gratitude was the thing I was talking about on the 4th of May. It was gratitude that Sydney had survived the COVID crisis better than most places, and it continues to do so, although there's a little bit of concern right now. And also that I was able to lead the kind of existence that I did have through the lockdown. And I did feel very fortunate, but I came back from that swim, had dinner, and straight after dinner I started to feel some pains in my back, my neck, a little bit in my chest as well. And I had no idea what was happening, and I didn't really think it was that serious. But about 8 hours after I first started to experience those pains, they became so serious that I decided I should go up to hospital. So a mate drove me up to Royal Prince Alfred, and I walked into the emergency room where it was actually empty, I guess because of COVID, and it was 4 a.m. And I was taken to a triage nurse, and then soon after I was having a scan of my chest, and soon after that I was told by a doctor, and I can only remember bits and pieces of this, but I was told by a doctor that I was very sick. I barely knew what an aorta was, and I certainly didn't know what an aortic dissection was, but I've since learned that the aorta is the most It's the most important artery in the body. It's the artery that supplies blood to all the other arteries. And an aortic dissection is something that occurs when you develop tears in your aorta. And you can probably imagine that that's a pretty nasty thing to have happen. The reason it happened to me, it doesn't normally happen to people of my age or my sort of other, my level of fitness and so on. But I had cancer in the late 90s and then again in 2000. And when I had cancer back then, I also had radiation to my neck and upper chest. And most likely that radiation touched on the top of my aorta, the sort of aortic arch that runs quite high, higher than I ever realised. And so very likely that radiation caused some damage to that part of the aorta. And after 22 years of blood pumping hard against that somewhat damaged piece of aorta, it finally gave up. And I developed a dissection that ran from my heart all the way down to my groin. So it was an extremely nasty condition. And very soon after that, doctor told me that I was very, very sick and needed emergency surgery. I was in the theatre, and a 10-hour emergency operation was underway. The surgeon that carried that out, a man called Dr. Ben Robinson, for whom I have enormous respect, and I'll be forever grateful for his work. He saved my life. There's no question about it. I was already very close to sort of losing the battle against something that I had no conception of when I walked into the emergency room. But I was very, very unwell. After 10 hours of massive surgery, I was then sent to ICU, and a day or so later I had a stroke that paralysed my left side, but as you can see, very luckily that resolved itself in the sort of week or so that followed. And I also got pneumonia while in ICU. So it was a pretty tough old time. And I spent about 15 days in a kind of... I had no real sense of what had happened to me. I have so much to be grateful for. Of course, I've mentioned Dr. Robinson, who saved my life. And, there aren't that many times in the course of one's life that you'll have somebody save you. But I've now had that, well, arguably even more than once. But this was the time where I was closest to the abyss. But in addition to the incredible work and the incredible gratitude I feel towards Dr. Robinson, I also had an amazing experience of medical professionals throughout the 5 weeks I spent in hospital. I met many doctors. I had 2 very big operations, 2 10-hour operations, but I also was in the hands of doctors in ICU and nurses, many. I mean, over the course of 5 weeks, I don't know how many, but it would have been many dozens of medical professionals. And it was quite astonishing, the kind of professionalism I experienced, but also the kindness, the generosity, the regard, the concern. It was, this wasn't my first encounter with the hospital system in Australia, but this one was especially memorable because of the sort of culture that I discovered this time. The doctors went to incredible lengths to help me understand what had happened to me. It wasn't just the medical professionals that I'm grateful for. It was the family and friends that helped me through this terrible experience. In particular, my direct family, my brother and my sister, who were by my bed every day. or every day of the 5 weeks I spent in hospital, and who also played a big part in the weeks since I left hospital. And also my old mate Joe, who happened by chance to be staying with me in my house in Sydney through the sort of COVID lockdown. He'd come here from Singapore, and the sort of support that I got from them, but also from other relatives and friends from all over the world, the messages I received, these were so important in my recovery. So I was so fortunate to have people who were able to take care of me during the recovery. And one of the things I remember best about the recovery period was the power of hand-holding. Very early on during my recovery, while I was in intensive care, I felt the need to hold the hand of whoever it was that was visiting me. And, my sister, my brother, my friends, anyone that was sitting by my bed, and no matter how delirious I was, I knew the power of hand-holding. And I can say that hand-holding was the comfort I received from hand-holding, and I think, the energy and the sort of will to recover was so important. It was so therapeutic. And my sisters told me that even nurses in the ICU at RPA were roped in, and I would sort of, I guess, demand that they also hold my hand. And I cannot tell you, I remember the sort of power of hand-holding. I've now been out of hospital for quite a few weeks, and I'm sort of edging towards a more normal life now, still getting my energy back and trying to put some weight on and gradually getting back into exercise. But as I do that, I'm watching the world and watching the COVID crisis, and it really occurs to me that 2020 should be the year of the medical professional. The heroism that has been displayed by medical professionals, most of these people didn't sign up for a job where their own health and welfare would be on the line, and but they have stepped up. They've shown incredible dedication to the cause, and we are so fortunate. And here in Sydney, things have been much better than elsewhere in the world, but nonetheless, I can't imagine what it must be like to be a doctor or a nurse facing the risk of having to deal with a major COVID outbreak. And even though I haven't had COVID, my own experience during this crisis has made me very aware of the professionalism and the incredible generosity. And when you lead the sort of selfish existence that people like me lead most of the time, it really is humbling to meet and to sort of be inside a culture that is so dedicated to care and to the welfare of others. And that was a really memorable feature of my time in hospital. So I feel very lucky, I feel very fortunate, and now that I'm out and now that I'm recovering quite well, I'm looking forward to getting back into my life. That's not going to be straightforward because COVID has wiped out a lot of what we do here at Rusty Compass and at the old Compass, but we're sort of optimistic and hopeful that some semblance of normality can be regained in the year or so ahead. But thank you for listening to this rather unusual outburst from me, rather indulgent really, as I sort of mark my return to sort of work and making these videos again. I couldn't kind of just make a video and not refer to the experience I've been through. And I thank those of you who have sent messages and who've provided support during this time. But it's certainly been a profound experience, one that I hope I don't have to deal with too soon again. yeah, thank you for listening.